The millions of tourists who descend on New Orleans each year don't come for sandy beaches.
But there was a time when that's about all that existed in what became New Orleans. Tonight, John Snell takes us back in time to the barrier island under New Orleans.
To the casual observer, this looks like any other section of marsh. But this spot in extreme eastern New Orleans, almost at the St. Tammany Parish line, is truly unique. Walk along an ancient beach. In high tide, just a sliver of sand.
If you go out to Ship Island, you're going to see sand and shells just like this.
In other ways, this place seems strange.
You generally don't see pine trees out in marshes.
But historical geographer Richard Campanella says there's a perfectly logical explanation.
Many New Orleanians might be amazed to hear that beneath their city runs a relic barrier island.
Centuries before New Orleans existed, this place looked a lot like Dauphin Island in Alabama, Ship Island in Mississippi, or any of the other barrier islands that string along the Gulf Coast. Geographers have dubbed it the Pine Island Trend. It ran from what is now Metairie through Lakeview and Gentilly, followed part of the eventual I-10 route before veering off to the southern tip of St. Tammany. Here, Campanella finds artifacts that appear to date back hundreds of years. Let's go back 4,300 years. Lake Pontchartrain was a shallow bay with Pine Island to the southeast. When the Mississippi River shifted course toward the east, it buried the island under a mountain of silt and eventually built what we came to think of as the rest of the river delta, for the most part covering Pine Island.
Today, 165,000 New Orleanians live on top of this relic barrier island.
Campanella says it's anywhere from a few inches to 30 feet down. In fact, when Hurricane Katrina blew apart the London Avenue Canal levee, people on the east side of the canal were mystified as sand buried cars and lawns. Sand up to the doorstep. Where in the world was it coming from?
That was excavated Pine Island Trend sand. It tapped into this ancient 4,000-year-old barrier island that many people had no idea existed.
Here remains the one spot where evidence of the island exists at the surface, just out of the river's reach, a spit of sand and pine trees in the middle of a marsh.
But what it left behind was a bay of the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what Lake Pontchartrain is. It's not really a lake, it's a tidal lagoon, it's a brackish water bay. But if it weren't for this feature here, we would have a completely different southeastern Louisiana.
Had it not been for the island, Campanella explains the river would have flowed in different directions, almost certainly filling in a large part of Lake Pontchartrain to the north, which might look today like the Maurepas Swamp. Instead, the river lunged eastward.
And therefore, all of the thinking that went into siting this city would have happened elsewhere.
The beautiful crescent of New Orleans might have happened someplace else, or not at all. Geography and destinies forever altered by an ancient island. In the Pine Island Trend, John Snell, Fox 8 News.
Pine Island was discovered when scientists and engineers started doing projects for the Works Progress Administration during the Depression. Soil samples revealed sand and shells just inches below the surface.